My father died when I was 3 years of old. My brother and I was left with my mother, and she wasn't in the habit of earning so much of a living, and so she kept looking around one place and another for a job. And finally she heard of this Shaker Society, and we got in contact with her, and one of the neighbors brought us up here in November.
Yes.
We talked with Elder Dumont. He had charge here, and he called up Elder Otis Sawyer, who was in Alfred at that time, and asked him if he would like to take a couple of boys over to Alfred. Elder Otis replied, "If they're good boys," he said, "you take them yourself." He had 3 others. So consequently, we met Mother. Mother met in Lewiston, and papers were signed that we should come here. And we arrived here the 7th of January, about 8 o'clock in the evening, one Saturday evening. And I was placed in the old dwelling house that stands by this building does at the present time. And my brother went out to the shop where the other boys were. How that division was, I don't know. I guess they took a shine to me.
I liked you from the beginning.
So.
Right?
So I kept learning from one thing to another that saw that what was required. And I worked with the other boys, and we got in wood, and we did chores at the cow barn. And because I'd shown quite a lot of interest in the cattle, when I was 14, a gentleman came to the barn. He said, "Your barn look good, your cattle look good. Who has charge of them?" I said, "I do." "You do?" I said, "Sure." So it went from one thing to another, and as I say, when I was 14, I practically had the charge of the cattle.
I see.
And then we worked at different jobs. In the spring, we tapped 200 trees and put out 400 buckets. And Elder Dumont and Elder Slizzy Noyes, they did the evaporating night and day, sometimes for 2 or 3 days, 20 or 30 barrels of sap. And I've learned since that each gallon required about a barrel of sap.
A barrel
to
of sap to boil down to make 1 gallon?
And some of that was sold at $1 a gallon.
Imagine the price,
So that
the difference of
represented
today.
the time so far.
Right, isn't that some difference? Well, when actually did you become a member? I understand it's 21 that you have to be.
21.
At 21 you signed the covenant and became a member.
I became a member and signed the covenant, same all members have to.
Now, the ministry at that time consisted of just who? Did I understand you said Elder William Dumont was the...
No, Elder Dumont was never in the ministry.
I see.
Elder Otis Sawyer, Elder Hester Adams, and Elder Mary Gillespie. Those 2 sisters came from Canterbury. Elder Otis Sawyer was raised in this section up on what we call Shaker Hill, about a mile above.
From all reports you told me, Delmer, he must have been a great man, Elder Otis Sawyer.
Oh?
He must have really been a great man, I say, Elder
Otis Sawyer was a quiet man, but the most sincere man I ever met. You hardly ever saw a smile on his face, but he had a heart as big as an ox.
Yes.
He's a wonderful man. And before this building was completed in 83, or in the first of 84, he was over to Alfred. He took pneumonia and died there. He was buried there.
Yes.
And Elder John Vance, who was elder at Alfred at that time, he took charge of the building. He had to complete it. And the first meal was served, Thanksgiving, 1884.
Yes.
See, I came in 82, and the old house was moved that fall. The new house was built in 83, and the first meal was in 84.
Right. Now we're in the very largest building here, the large brick building that we're referring to at the time. Now, Delmer, you're a man of more accomplishments than any man that I've ever known. You seem to be able to do just about everything. Now, how did you learn all these different fields?
Well, that's a question. I've been wonderfully successful. My mother's father, my grandfather Colby, he was an Englishman. He ran a saxstone brine factory in Brunswick for years. And then the building burned, and he had lived in Thompson. He had ridden back to Thompson there. In fact, he lived in Thompson all the time. And then he passed away. Well, I give the credit of my mechanical ingenuity, which I know I have had, from that line, from my grandfather.
Yes.
My father, as far as I know, I don't know as much about his parents as I wish I had. But he had a very beautiful handwriting, and he went through Kent's Hill Academy, and then was clerk in the town hall at Topsom up to the time he died.
This is Thompson, did you say?
Topsom, Maine. That's near Brunswick, across the river from
Thompson,
Brunswick.
Maine, I see.
Where I was born.
Right.
So, in speaking of the different talents I have an interest in something and go to work on it. Now, for quite a few years, I built hot water heaters, one for our greenhouse, which one of the boys and I built. I have a picture of it somewhere. It's 15 feet wide and 50 feet long, and I built a heater there of 2-inch pipe. And they told me in the piping company in Lewiston, said, we don't have a man that wants to cut 2-inch pipe. But I'd jump up on the die and pull that down. A lot of it I cut alone. In making that up in my shop, I had an idea of screwing a right-hand thread to one end and a left-hand thread the other.
Yes.
I struggled on it for hours. Finally, I saw it up against it. I walked right off somewhere and come back and found out just how to do it. By making a right angle, right and left, that helped me out. But now that was spiritual help.
I've heard you say that before, Delmer. You feel that much of your help has been spiritual help.
Lots of times. When I've been in a jam, I'd hesitate, stop, walk off, something like that, come right back and pick up the right tools to do the right job. Now, I don't know how many heaters I built. I know I built one for the greenhouse, and then the sisters wanted one in the laundry. I put 152 feet of 1.25 inch pipe in layers in that heater. It lasted 30 years till it began to leak a little, and then Elmer Walker, the plumber, they asked him to put in a modern heater. He said, I can't put you in a heater to do the job that Delmer's did, but I'll do what I can. Well, he put in a heater for that.
And you'd never done this before, Delmer?
I had never done it before.
Isn't there something? This is certainly amazing.
We had our first automobile in 1909. I just drove it little in the fall. The next season, 1910, Elder Dumont to drive in some, but finally he quit, leave it to me. I built the garage over at the stable.
Yes.
On this side of the stable. And I bought a little book that called The Steel Square and Its Uses. I laid out my rafters. The house was 22 feet wide, and my house, the roof was a pitch roof, a gable roof, and a man that was working here at the time, or living here at the time, working at the mill, he come up one day and he said, Delmer, said, have you had any of those rafters on your building yet? I told him I hadn't. Said, he kind of doubted my ability. He said, don't you want me to have to put up a couple? I said, I don't mind. I'd had them on the ground, measured them. I said, we put them up, nailed them together, and they fitted perfect. Well, that's pretty good. Said, that's
you laid it all on the ground. That's really remarkable. Well, now, Delmer, you made quite a remarkable saw that you used in the making of your oval boxes. Weren't you very young when you made that saw up?
What?
I was referring to the saw that you made up.
Oh, the saw bench, the bench
saw, yes.
That began in a peculiar way. When I was in my 20s, there was a hotel built over here to Raymond, and the carpenter took the job, bought a bandsaw, steel bandsaw and cast iron. I stood before that for hours and studied it up. When that was taken out, even before that thing, I went and built a duplicate of that using wood for 30-inch wheel. It used a 16.5-foot saw. I braided the 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch, and later on a 1-inch saw, lapping it over. You have to have a clamp for it, without any assistance, just for seeing a man do it
just
once.
Just by seeing a man doing it once.
And then before I get off from that, well, before I forget it, in 1902, the sisters in Elder William and the sisters decided to have some water work. It measured 400 feet from this well up to the tower. They allowed me to go ahead and hire men, and I surveyed that ditch, and first Elder William paid them, first Elder City, I wasn't a trustee, the Elder City would pay them. We dug that ditch, and I'd seen a pipe laid over to Lewiston by going, one end going into the well, and then caulked up with oakum, and hot lead put on. We had a forge, and I laid all the pipe from this highway up to the tower and up into the tower, but just seen it done once in Lewiston.
Well, you certainly have many, many talents, Delmer. The thing that amazes me that not only do you have mechanical talent, but you also have artistic talent. You're a painter, an artist, and as I
said, my brother and I were both pretty handy with the pen and brush. I think we took that part from our father.
Yes.
And it so happened I never met or knew his mother. She married my grandfather as a first wife, and I think my father was the only child from her.
Yes.
And one time when I was traveling for the sisters, selling their goods, I found out that there was a boat leaving Portland every day to go to Oz Island. And I talked to Elder Delmer. I said, would it be agreeable for me to take a boat and go down to Oz Island? And I thought I could check up, find out who my grandmother was. He said, certainly, right ahead. That night I had a dream of meeting the Savior in a very peculiar way, in the basement of our barn. He stood there holding his hand over like that. For the effects of that dream, I said, I'll not go to the Hapsburg. For the fear, I didn't know my grandmother there, my father's mother. I said, there might be some element that would draw me away against my own will. I canceled it, and I've never known from that day to this who my own grandmother, Wilson, was.
Well, that's quite a thing, Delmer.
And in lots of times, I tell you, when I've been in you might say a jam, I've hesitated, thought things over, pick up the tools, and do a perfect job.
Well, certainly the workmanship that you've done attests to the truth of your statements. Your workmanship is certainly amazing, whatever you've done. Now, you're a wonderful cabinet maker, and just a little while ago when we ate dinner downstairs, I sat and looked at those beautiful cherrywood tables.
I told the sister a few days ago, well, I said, I know why there's one desk in the place that I built and got a date on the drawer in the sister's room down below. I made it, presented it, a black cherry. I was always fond of black cherry.
You allowed black cherry to work in, didn't you?
And on one of those drawers there tells the date I built it. I think that was before the century, 1900 and something around, 59. And since then, when the city board said, what about the desk up to the office building there? At first I'd forgotten, and I recalled that I built that for my own room. It was made of sycamore. I'd seen sycamore lumber in Lewiston. It's a very beautiful grain, but it doesn't work equal to cherry. And now, Sister Ellen, I had it in her bedroom as a desk. There were like 2 cabinet desks I built.
Well, those beautiful cherry wood tables in the dining room are a marvel.
Those tabletops, there was no lumber in the state that would supply that. I asked a cabinet maker in Portland if they could secure lumber for tables that size, and they said they could get it from Boston. They got that from Boston, and they made up those tables. Then Campbell and I, a carpenter here, we made the underwork. Then I screwed this base to the cover, and I inquired of different painters how best to treat that cherry, and I went at it. And I had 7 coats of treatment and varnish on those tables when they first completed, and they never refurnished for 20 years afterward.
It lasted all that time.
And Elder Henry Green came over from Albert and said, why, he's a regular piano polish.
Well, now, we're very interested, Brother Delmer, in the wonderful oval boxes that you made. And in 1 year's time, I understand that you made a tremendous amount of them. And I think something like 1,083 is the figure.
1083.
I
have a picture showing me in the
Yes, we have one in the museum at Canterbury that shows that some of them. Now, could you describe in some detail how an oval box is made?
I would have men that run in sawmills locally to save me all good cherry plank that they could. And it's 1.5 inches thick and run from 6 inches to 8 to 10 or 12 inches wide with the back on. I didn't want any edge. That was put into my shop, and I trimmed that up on this saw table. I tell you, I had an edger that I get it, and then later I put on a gauge and gauged the different widths that I wanted. It all come in 4 feet long. Then I had the chance of selecting the perfect wood in that plank. Well, I used to work up probably about a couple cards in the winter and make it into smaller stuff. And then when I resawed it, with about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then Elder Slitinoid bought me a wonderful planer, and I could set the chipper on that planer that keeps from lifting the grain. You couldn't measure it, just let the light strike it like a hair's breadth, and you cut right across grain in the board. You never noticed it. And that, of course, all of those wouldn't, and when you're playing down, a good deal less than 1/16 of an inch, I had a board running through with a heavy butt on it, like a shingle butt. You come up on that, and that the planer would leave that thin right run over that, so you could see your fingers through that lap. And on the front part of it, I'd build it up with paper to make it thinner where I cut the fingers. It's all done with the planer.
In other words, that was to get your bevel. So
Sure,
for where you made the
course,
lap,
the surface was perfectly level, but the other parts were built up so as to bring it down just where I wanted it.
I see. With paper, you build up underneath to get that.
That's right.
To get that level.
Get
that
that
was
elevation.
Your shim, in other words.
I had to have a pattern for each size of carrier. There were 4 different colors. You see, there was what we call the price at that time. Boxes they get $6 for now were $3, $2 1/4, $1.75, and $1.50. Those are the 4 sizes we practically made. But we didn't make any little ones, only afterwards.
These are the large carrier type.
These are like with bales on.
Yes.
And you're asking how it started. Way back in 90-odd, 6 or 7, Elders Dorothy Durkin of Canterbury came down here with a quartet of sisters musicians.
That's right.
Oh, they were beautiful
the
singers.
wonderful Qui quartet we've heard
And
about.
they come into my shop and wanted to see some of my work, and all I was doing at that time was putting bales on the carriers that the sisters bought in Lebanon. In fact, we bought all the carriers they had in stock in Lebanon, and I put the bales on for 2 or 3 years. Well, that wasn't enough. When I had those done, I got to make up something to fill the bill, fill the supply. So I began to make these gradually, so that I say, finally, I have a date in a book here. From 1910 to 1920, I built some over 8,000 boxes.